Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my channel Tech with Eddie, which is all about integrating your IoT devices with your preferred home automation ecosystem. Now, you all know very well by now that most of my videos are all about using DIY platforms and their plugins to integrate my not so certified IoT devices into Apple HomeKit. But the most important thing here is to get the same rich home automation experience by spending less. So please do take a look and don't feel shy to hit the like and subscribe button to always follow along. Now, it's always been a year that I've been doing these integration videos on plugins and making sure the devices are exposed to Apple HomeKit using HOOBS and Homebridge platforms. Now, for any plugin to work, there is always some level of configuration from you to successfully expose the devices. But at times, there are instances where you need to copy paste code into the file configuration, which is a little bit tedious, overwhelming, and at times when not done correctly, it turns out to be a frustrating situation. And your devices don't work, the platform does not come back online, and it goes on. I'll give you an example. When I started, it took me around 24 hours to understand that a comma plays an important role to identify two devices in the config. And until then, my platform wasn't working, and I thought, you know what, I signed up for something that programmers can do only. It was quite a bummer situation. So in today's video, for the not so programmers in us, here's a brief understanding on the Config.Json file and the types of plugins out there that you will use or need to expose, configure, and enable features for your devices. Now, this video will be good for those who are just getting started and for those who are over the fence to start. This will give you that gentle nudge to begin. Now, mind you, the developers are always trying to follow the best practice to use as much an interface for your inputs. But there are some tweaks or updates that is required at times to input in the config.json file. So as of today, there are only 504 plugins that use a user interface from the 2591. That means around 20% is good, and the rest of the 80% requires some level of copying and pasting of code. Now, I've broken down the video into 4 parts with their timestamps in the description. They are what is the .json, overview of the config.json that's used in HOOBS and Homebridge, some tips, and lastly, we're going to see the types of plugins available out there for you to expose your devices and also understand where you can have it done quickly. So let's not waste time, like I always say, and let's jump into this tutorial. Alright guys, let's take a quick look on the word JSON itself, and don't freak out. There's going to be no classes of how to be a programmer, but like I said, just to give you an overview of how the whole thing works. So when you go about configuring your plugins, it becomes much more easier for you to understand the names, the values, and how they all work in together. Now remember, platforms like HOOBS and Homebridge, they use Node.js server. So they use this JavaScripting to make sure that data flows across easily, and that's how the plugins are made to recognize all of these languages. Now, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of all these technical information. Just want to give you a quick overview and move further on how to have everything working for you as well. So first things first, right, on .json, what is it? The full form stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's a lightweight format for storing and transporting data. It's often used when data is sent from a server to a web page, and it's self-describing and easy to understand. Now, how does it work, and what are the rules when you're working with these information, right? The first one is data is in name and value pairs. So you put in a name and you give it a value. They work in pairs. They are separated by commas. So remember that situation that I had, which took me 24 hours. 3, the curly braces hold objects together, and the square brackets hold arrays together. Now, what does all this mean, right? So this is a basic example of an employee, all right? It's not about the configuration of home automation, but just say, for example, this is the employee, and each of the values over here has, each of the names has a value. So first name has a value, last name has a value. So with the employees, there are 3 lines over there. So what does this mean? This defines an employee's object. Okay, so employees is an object, is a group, and within it there is an array of 3 employee records. So there are 3 employee records. Now if you've noticed the third line, there is no comma to end it. So this means that is the end of the object classified for employees. So when you look at it, a name value pair consists of a field name in double quotes, followed by colon, and by a value also in double quotes. So very simple understanding on JSON, right? JavaScript object notion, and that's how I think that's the best you should know about it. No more, and no less as well. Now let's go and get an understanding of what the config.json file looks like. Now when you go and if you're in the advanced section in HOOBS or under the config in Homebridge, you will see this lots of text over here. You want to see all of the information that's already there for your server. So this is the first thing that makes up the bridge that exposes the data to HomeKit. And also you will see 2 important sections called as accessories and also platform. So this is where normally all of your devices go in for configuration. And also you will see that everything is nested between the curly brackets. If there is anything outside, you will start seeing an error over here displayed over here. So all of these platforms come in also with an editor, and this is how all of your data is nested between the curly brackets, and all of the information for that particular platform or accessories are nested within the square brackets as well. So in this case, we've got 2 platforms within the platforms object, and the accessories you've got none now. So we'll see a little bit later how do we add them as well. So this is the basic look at a config.json file. All of this information on top is populated automatically. The only information that you populate is once you start adding plugins that occupies the space between accessories and platforms. Now from here, let's take, before we go into understand the different types of plugins, some quick tips when you are working with .json and how to go about with the configurations. So number 1, if you want to validate your .config, there is a link called jasonlint.com. So all you got to do is copy all and paste it here and click on validate JSON. So it tells you if it's all good. Just in case if you remove any value and you hit validate JSON, it tells you what is the issue. So it gives you the string issue. So in this case, always remember is the comma mark, and the last array that you're going to put in, always make sure there is no comma, because the moment you put a comma, the system expects you to, the configuration expects you to have something here below. So if I have validate JSON, it gives me an error. If you remove this one out, it doesn't give you an error. So you want to make sure you use this website as often as possible to validate your config.json. Second one, if you want, you can also download this application called Atom. And once you download, you can copy paste this entire file over there and run the validations as well. And another most important thing about it is when you do configurations, there are a couple of plugins. Actually, most of the plugins use a lot of network details, a lot of local area network details. So these details are called as IP address, MAC address, your username and password for some servers, or to access a device. So you want to make sure any network IP address that you are using for the configuration are reserved in your router. If you don't do that, if there are any network restarts or reboots, the config is going to look for that IP address put in the configuration. And what happens if it doesn't find, it's not able to expose the device, and you're going to have some restart issues, or maybe the platform doesn't come online. So you want to make sure the network IP addresses are good together with the complementing MAC address as well. And the most important skill, right? Copying pasting the codes correctly, as in their brackets, the curly or the square brackets. If you're not too sure, use that website as well. And another tip that I use normally to make sure I'm using the right plugin is also using the platform's verified plugin. So if Homebridge has a verified plugin or HOOBS has a verified plugin, use it, because they've already gone through all the protocols to ensure that that plugin attains that minimum level of compliance with their platforms. And also a very important one that I use personally is, although each of the platforms have their own search for the plugins, I prefer going to the NPM or the GitHub pages to go through all these plugins and also click on these popularity, the quality of these plugins, the maintenance, how often are they maintained. So you know that the developer is also keeping these plugins updated for better device performance, exposure, even some vulnerabilities that they may catch. So I kept this link in the description. You can use it as well. Even you can search for the plugins within HOOBS or Homebridge, but just in case if you're in a doubt, go to this web page. I use it quite often to see how it is. And also another thing, any plugin that you are in, you want to make sure you go to their GitHub page. So I always keep saying go to their GitHub page. This is where you go and click on that star. This gives them that motivation. So you want to make sure you want to start if you like the plugin, because this shows how many people of the community are using it. And also another good one over here is to go to issues. So if you're having any issues with the plugin and it's not working properly, this is the first place I'd go to find out if there's been any thing that's recurring that can help you right away. So you can go over here and put in any keyword over here. So there has been 4 closed. So if I change the value over here to closed, so I can see all of the recommended issues over here. So I can click one of them and go through whatever the issues, if there were, and how they were resolved. So those are the quick tips when you're working with .json file. Now let's go and see what are the different types of plugins available for these platforms. Now, there are a lot of plugins available. There are plugins that are replicated by another developer. So he takes the work of another developer, does it much better, and he releases it. And the word they use is forked. So if that plugin is forked, meaning somebody originally created and this is just a replication and updated to add in some more features. This typically happens if the plugin has not been touched for more than a year, or the developer has a better idea of doing it. And since this is an open platform, a lot of people are sharing information and getting done. So the first type of plugins, when you break it down, there are 2 of them, 2 sections. The first section is the accessories, and the second section is the platforms. So when you look at the accessories, now these plugins are more focused and most basic and simplest of all. They should be used if only you want to expose a single accessory and don't require any special functionality. So if you have gone through my videos such as the Pi-hole, the Synology, and the Plex, these are the plugins that use the accessory section. So it's only one device that's being exposed, no other functionality and no other sub-products are also exposed to HomeKit. So it's just one device. So for the accessory section, let's look at Pi-hole, right? So this is all of the information that I've added. So they are considered as accessories. So over here, you add in all of the name, the authentication. In this case, you have to make sure the accessories name is never changed. You leave it as it is. Okay, that's how the platform knows the plugin. That's how it connects the plugin to the device. You want to make sure there's the name of it. So this is the name that appears in HomeKit. The authentication, which is in the guide, so how to get the authentication is also over here. Now there are some plugins where you need an authentication. So this is that handshake between the plugin and the device. So there are some unique codes generated by the device. If there are any mismatch in these letters, these codes don't talk to each other, and there's a failure in the plugin communicating with the device. And then you got to go to the log section, and then you're going to see some errors happening. So in this case, whenever you're doing a configuration, you want to make sure that all of the details is put in correctly. So this is the name and the value. This is the name and the value. Okay, and you go on right till the end. In this case over here, there is no comma. So this is the end of the configuration. And that's a quick overview on accessories, which is for single devices that you want to expose to HomeKit. Now, on the other hand, we have the platform plugins where majority of the plugins fall into. So what are they? They are able to expose multiple accessories to the to Apple HomeKit and to the platform, and they themselves are broken down into two types. The first one is dynamic. Now, dynamic platforms can dynamically add or remove accessories at runtime. So accessories are fully stored to disk by Homebridge and HOOBS, and the exact state is reconstructed on a reboot. The plugin can store additional context as well. What does that mean? There is no configuration from here. You only download the plugin, you install it, you save it. The plugin itself automatically discovers all of the devices installed on your network based on the IP addresses. So it does all of that identification and automatically. There is no configuration from your end. And from there, what happens? Every 60 seconds or the time you assign, you can have this updated on its own. So the plugin captures the last state. So when it turns on, it goes back to the last state it was. So that means if a light was turned off with the red color on, when you turn it on back again, it will be on red color. So it captures the last state of the device, no configuration. So let's quickly look, what does that look like? So if I go to my search and if I type here magic. Now, a couple of months back, I did release my first plugin to integrate your Magic devices into Apple HomeKit. And there was a developer who created a new plugin that automatically exposes it to Apple HomeKit. So if I had to go to my earlier configuration, you would see that I have had to put the name, the IP address, what kind of a type. So there was some kind of work. Now with this plugin, a Magic Home Dynamic Platform, you hit install, let the install go on, we'll save it, and I've got one device in the bedroom which should pick up automatically and save it. So let's give it a couple of seconds and then we can see how that works as well. So the plugin has been installed and restarted, and if I go to my accessories section, there's nothing over here at the moment. So let me click on for configuration. Now this is the user interface that I was talking about that the developers make available for you. Now I'm just going to leave it as it is, okay? And I'm just going to hit save changes. And there's one more option I want to choose here is yes, I want to see the device names with their MAC addresses. So let's go ahead and save that as well. Now from there, I'm going to the log section, and you will see that the plugin has automatically picked up the device, the ID, the IP address. So if I go to my other HOOBS instance, this was configured manually, and you can see it has picked up over here everything automatically. So basically the plugin has done everything for me, and this is very good. So it saves up a lot of time. But on the other side, you want to make sure that all of these addresses are reserved on the router. So when any reboots on the network, it's much more quicker for the identification. And if I go under the devices section, you'll see that it's already available and I can control it. So this was the last state that the plugin, that the device was turned off. So that's about dynamic plugins, and this is also applicable for the lights. There's a plugin for lights, for Shelly, and a couple as well, but as far as I know, the most common ones are the Magic Home, Shelly's, and the lights. So that's all about dynamic plugins. Now on the other side, we do have the independent platform plugins, and what are these? These are typically used when the platform intends to only expose external accessories or provides other functionality while not exposing an accessory at all. What this means, you could configure a plugin and tweak its features. So something that I did with my Samsung TV, another one was with the Apple TV, PlayStation. So you can change attributes of the device all by controlling from the palm of your hands, and that makes it much more easier. So you can turn on and off certain features of the devices, or everything as well, and just leave something enabled. So in my Bose plugin video that I had done, I could turn on, I could make available certain radio stations and disable certain radio stations, all through the configuration, and that config itself exposes the right features to Apple HomeKit. And what are the different types of independent platform plugins? There are basically, one is email credentials. So email credentials is all about using a username, password, country code, and what platform. That automatically syncs with all the data in the cloud and pulls all that information. And most of these plugins are all user interface. So you just put in this information, save, restart, and pulls down all of the data. The flip side, or the negative side, is if you lose your internet connection, those devices are no more accessible within your home. So you lose all of that connectivity that you could from your mobile device. The next one is online authentication. So online authentication is all about generating authentication token codes. So you could see that from my Google video, how to enable that assistant. It's very common with Alexa. You will see that with the Nest, with the Ring, all of the services that you connect with these providers or with these manufacturers. They have an authentication code, and that you have to generate it from either from the website or an independent application. And again, this is also dependent on the internet connectivity. You lose that, you lose the functionality or the connection with your devices. The next one is, the third type is a local area network, right? So this one needs IP address, MAC, tokens, and keys. So if you want to expose your like say for example, your TUIA devices to the network, and you don't want to use the TUIA web platform, then you have to go and generate the keys, the tokens. Even for Xiaomi, you download that, you connect it with your IP address and your MAC address, use the correct device type, and so forth. So that's one. And then the next one is external packages, where you have to run external installers. So this one I did with my PlayStation video as well as my Apple TV video, where you had to run an external application through the terminal, download it, pair it with your device, and then after that you are able to expose the device in Apple HomeKit. So, and then there is one more type, is the advanced, right? And in this one is like using MQTT, more command controls, and there is no limit. So it all depends how much you want to push that plugin to, and how much features that the plugin brings in on board. So those are basically the 4 types of plugins that I've come across using being an independent for independent plugins. So let's quickly go for the TUIA over here. So if I go into configuration, being an email credentials, in this case I would just go in and put in the password, the country code. Now the platform over here is TUIA. So if you're using Smart Life or any other, so you want to make sure you put over here, and all you got to do is save changes. And if you want to know if that's working correctly, all you got to do is go to your logs, and you will see that the accessories have been found, enabled. So this provides you success. If there's any issues over here, then you won't be able to connect with the device, and will provide an error that the token name was not correct. Then continuing with this one, if you go for the online authentication, so if you go to the Google Smart Home, in this cases you would need to link your account, log in with your Google ID, and then I need to go on to my Smart Assistant and add in. So I've already done that, and let's close this window. It won't show up over here because I still have to do it on my phone to add and get these tokens. So this is another way of getting online authentication. Same way with the Alexa plugin and the Google Nest, the Nest, and as well as the Ring application. Now when you go for the local area network, this gets a little bit more not so straightforward, but you have to do it piece by piece. So in this case, if I go on to my Samsung plugin, what I would normally do is I would first take the basic configuration over here, the basic configuration, and then I would go to the HOOBS and paste it over here within the device section. So I wanted to make sure I put in the IP, the MAC address, and then I would go on and add subsections of the plugin. So always follow the information provided by the developer. So one by one, always go in first with the basic configuration, add in the device, and then go ahead. So when you look at all of these plugins, be it dynamic or independent, they have their own functionality, but what brings all of them together is especially for the independent, is the IP address, the MAC address, and every time you put in a name with the colons, you want to make sure you have a value as well. And this helps it for the configuration to understand what you're doing. And towards the end, the last line, no commas. So the configuration or the system knows that's the last part to look for, and then it all works within that data, which is within that curly brackets. And please use that the website to validate the configuration, and also copy paste, select all, copy paste. Another thing I do is I copy paste everything and I go into the JSON lint.com, paste it all over there, and I work it out until there's no green and until there's no red and everything is green in the validation. And it's very simple, nothing is too complicated. You don't need to be a programmer to do all of this, but follow the guide provided by the developer. If you don't do that, you are going to run into issues. Always start with the basic configuration. Add in the device first into Apple HomeKit. Let it be exposed first, and then you go tweaking with the accessories or any other features. So that's about it. Finally, there we are. We have an understanding of the Config.Json file used for HOOBS or Homebridge, and the types of plugins available for them as well. So if you're getting started, this will definitely help you to configure your plugins much faster. And for those over the fence to start, this will give you that gentle nudge to begin. Now to keep all of this going, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to bring all of this content for us. The more the merrier. It's also my driver and motivator. So if you need any help as well, please don't feel shy to leave a comment down below. I'll be very glad to assist you as well. And also at the same time, don't forget to visit the developers webpage and go and give them a star as well, because they know that the community is using that plugin, so they can also make it much better, and you can use the devices much better as well. And if you want your HOOBS in the box, I've left the link in the description. It also helps with the channel. So my friends, until the next time, stay safe, have a nice day, cheers, and happy automation.